Did you know that the author Will Self is a figment of my imagination? It's true. Hey book buddies, I'm Eric from Lonesome Reader, and I'm here today with another book chat video where I want to discuss things around the reading life. I was inspired to make this video because recently I made a video about this year's Goldsmiths Prize shortlist, and Will Smith is one of the authors on that shortlist. I made a silly remark wishing that I could bump into him because I've heard that he lives in my neighborhood. Well, literally, 3 days later, I passed by him in a farmer's market. How's that for a coincidence? He's very distinct and hard to miss because he's very tall and gawky. I've lived in this neighborhood for 5 or 6 months and never seen him, so it's as if just by talking about him I've sort of conjured him into being. Of course, I didn't say hello or that I made a video saying that I wanted to bump into him, because that would just be weird, but it gave me a chuckle. And this made me think about the bigger issue about whether we should meet the authors that we're reading. You know, there's this whole thing where you read an author's book and you really love it. You hear the author is doing a book signing, so you go to their reading, you queue up for 20 or 30 minutes, you present their book to them, and you have 5 or 10 seconds with this author you really admire. Do you say something funny or witty or heartfelt? It's such a nerve-wracking and awkward moment. I never know how to handle it. Authors must find it really awkward sometimes too, but I love meeting them because authors are my rock stars. So I'm gonna share a few tales with you about 5 awkward encounters I've had with authors at book signings. But if I'm gonna do this and you've had awkward encounters with authors as well, please share your experiences in the comments below. Deal? So first, I read Damon Galgut's novels Arctic Summer and The Good Doctor, and I love his writing so much. So I went along to hear him read and queued up after to get my book signed, and I sort of decided oh, I'm gonna act totally cool, and so I just presented my book and said, hello, thank you for the reading, I really enjoyed it. I open my book and I see it's already signed. I totally forgot that I bought this book several months ago at a bookstore and it was already signed. I get totally flustered and I was like, can you dedicate it to me? So while he's doing that, I totally panicked and thought I must look like such a moron, and so I wanted to say something really interesting to try to counteract that. And I talked about how moved I was by his writing and all this pretentious crap about how it made me feel less alone. He hands the book back, looking a bit scared by all my gushing praise, and just says thank you. And so I scurry away just blushing and feeling really embarrassed. You can see here in the novel where it was signed, and then it's in different writing with a different pen. It's made out to me. Next, like a lot of people, I was totally enraptured reading Susanna Clarke's novel Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell when it first came out, this big huge tomb of a novel. She didn't do many readings when it first came out, but I did see in a newspaper listed that she was going to be doing a lunchtime weekday book signing at Hatchard's bookstore near Piccadilly Circus. That's clear across town from where I work, but I decided during my lunch hour I would try to quickly hop on the tube and rush over to the bookstore to try to get my book signed. So I walk into the shop with my book, and there she is, sat at the side at a table, signing a book, and there's just one customer with her. So I thought, perfect, I can get my book signed and get back in time for work. I step towards the table, and a man stops me and says, where did you get that book? I had pre-ordered this online, and I read it right when I got it, and so I explained that to him. He says, please leave. Now, I totally understand that. A bookshop organizes a signing, and of course they want customers to buy the book from them. So I say, sorry, I already own this, but could I buy another book of equal or greater value? And he says, no. Leave now. I'm totally gobsmacked and really annoyed because I raced across town to try to just get my book signed. And Susanna Clarke was just sitting at this table. She'd finished with the other person that she was signing the book for, and so she was just sitting there. So I felt totally humiliated and I turned around and left, and that's why my copy is still unsigned. Several years ago, before Doris Lessing sadly passed away, she was interviewed by the great biographer Hermione Lee at an event at the South Bank Centre. I'd been to see Lessing speak a few times before, amazing, fascinating woman. After the discussion, I queued up to get the 2 volumes of her autobiography signed by her. And while she was doing this, I decided to try to be friendly. At a previous event, she'd remarked how poor her health had been, so I asked how she was feeling now. She said she found each day so difficult because she had such bad back problems. At the time, I was studying to be a massage therapist, which is something that I do part-time. So, like an idiot, I say, "Oh, I do massage. I could give you a back rub sometime. Let me give you my number." I take out a piece of paper and I realize how moronic I sound. But it's sort of like caught in the moment and I can't go back. Once I started writing my number, I couldn't just stop and go. Doris Lessing and Hermione Lee are staring at me like I'm insane. I quickly slide my number to Doris and she and Hermione Lee just burst out laughing. I blush, totally red, and I just quietly say, "Thank you, I hope you feel better," and I run away humiliated. So in 2014, Neel Mukherjee and Ali Smith were both shortlisted for the Booker Prize that year, which was so wonderful. I've known Ali for like 15 years. When my novel came out, she gave me a really nice blurb for it, and we used to like exchange all these messages geeking out about Joyce Carol Oates, because we're both big fans of her writing. And I've known Neel for several years through a mutual friend. They're both such wonderful people and amazing writers. Every year the Booker Prize has the shortlisted authors give a reading at the South Bank Center, and so before that event I emailed Neel and told him how excited and happy for him I was and how I was looking forward to seeing the readings. He wrote back saying how nervous he was and to please come say hello after the readings. So after the event, in the main hall of the South Bank Center, which is a huge space, all the authors were sat at a table giving book signings. I queued up and when I got to the front, Ali and Neel gave me a big hug. I just wanted to say a quick hello and congratulations and then take off, but Neel very sweetly said, like, "Oh, I'll get you a drink." I was like, no, and went to leave, but Neel leapt up and went to the bar. It was a very busy crowd, and it ended up taking him quite a long time to get through and get to the bar and come back. It was like that kind of situation again where once he said it, like he felt like he couldn't really go back, and so he just left. And I was there at the front of the queue, and there was hundreds of people waiting behind me who were just sort of staring at me, wondering why I was just standing there. It must have taken him like 7 or 8 minutes to get back, and so it felt like quite awkward. But of course it was like really sweet of him to want to go get me a drink. Like I said, Joyce Carol Oates is my absolute favorite author. She's a genius with an incomparable imagination, and she doesn't often come to the UK. So when I saw in 2005 she was giving a lecture at Oxford, I jumped at the chance to get tickets to go and see her. Closer to the event, I saw that she was also doing a London Guardian book club meeting about her novel We Were the Mulvaneys, so I got a ticket for that as well. I went up to Oxford to see the lecture, and then the next day was the book club meeting. I got there early, and I go to sit in this type of like lecture hall theater where they were having the event, and there was these like raised seats for the audience, and I was the only one there, apart from Joyce Carol Oates sat at the front with her interviewer. They were just having a casual chat, and the interviewer asked Joyce about what the lecture was about, and Joyce was kind of struggling a bit to try to summarize what it was about. So I speak up and I said it was about the faith of the writer because that's what the title of the lecture was. And Joyce was like, "Oh yes, that's right." And the interviewer said, "Oh, you were there as well?" And I said yes. And she said, "What, are you stalking her?" Okay, so to me, Joyce is one of the greatest living writers. You know, and to have the opportunity to go see her speak, it's really like seeing Virginia Woolf or James Joyce. And if you had the opportunity to see them speak multiple times, like, you would jump on the chance, wouldn't you? But of course, I couldn't articulate this in the moment, and I just started blushing really badly and said, "No, I'm not a stalker." So that was very awkward and embarrassing, but it was fine afterwards. I had a nice chat with Joyce. She is the most wonderful person We've been in touch a lot through the years, and we chat on Twitter frequently. When I posted once that I was about to go hiking, she emailed me this long, sweet list with like advice about going hiking and the right footwear to have and stuff like that. So it's all fine, but I always remember the embarrassment of that moment. Since I've been living in London so long, I have a lot more stories about meeting authors, but I'm gonna stop now because I've been rambling on long enough. Time to tell me about some authors you've met in the comments below. Have you had great encounters or awkward encounters with authors? And let me know what you think. Do you like to meet authors after they give a reading? Do you think it's better just to keep it an intellectual relationship on the page? I guess if you just read older literature where the authors have died, you don't have to worry about this issue. Unless you had a time machine. But if you did have a time machine, what author would you like to go meet in the past? I think a deceased author I would really love to meet is Juna Barnes, who wrote that weird novel Nightwood, because I think it would just be a lot of fun, and we would probably have a few good drinks. So comment below and let's have a chat. Thanks for watching, and happy reading, everyone.